Alan Turing said that whenever we find a machine that is capable of exhibiting intelligent behavior similar to that of a human being or indistinguishable from it, we have artificial intelligence of a human parity. Alan Turing devised a test where a human was given text-based inputs, knowing that they could come from either a human or from a machine. If the evaluator couldn't tell one from the other, the test was passed. We start this third podcast on the Pangea AI and Languages series where experts analyze the world of artificial intelligence and languages and how both come across and combine. I'm Manuel Herranz, Pangeanic CEO. It's a great pleasure to interview Konstantin Dranch, language industry researcher and founder of Custom.MT. Hello, Konstantin.
Hi, Manuel. How are you doing today?
Very good, very good. It's always a pleasure to talking to you. So thank you, Konstantin, for offering us the opportunity to know more about you, what you do, your background on this podcast. I'm sure that your contribution is going to be very interesting to our audience. Welcome. So,
thank you.
Okay, let's start. You know me, I know you from
yeah, we've known each other for many years now.
We do indeed. So let us tell us some briefly in 1 minute, 2 minutes about your career path, how you came to be here.
So I started in localization quite a long time ago, maybe something like 12 years by now. Oh my God, I'm so long in this industry. And my forte has been market research. The first job was marketing and strategy in a translation technology company. And then I worked in a company called Mimsy Insights, where I was leading the research direction. And the work there was to map the industry, what kind of technology it uses, how big it is, who are the main actors, and where we are going. And so after this company, I decided to start my first business on my own. And I was thinking, what's hot in language these days? What could be super interesting for the corporate translators all around the world and the localization managers? And that was about 2 years ago. And at that time, the hottest thing which was capturing everyone's imagination was machine translation model customization. At that time, Google, Microsoft, they added those consoles where people could go and add their data and customize the language output of machine translation so that it learns product names, the company voice, the modality, the style, becomes more accurate, specifically with this professional scientific content or marketing content, whatever the company or the organization has. And so we were, with my partner, we were discussing, how do we go about it? What do we do? And so we came up with the suggestion Custom.MT. MT stands for machine translation, but it's only the people from the inside the language industry could understand at the beginning. We even had an email from Maltese authorities asking, guys, why are you taking the custom.malta domain? Right? What are you going to do with it? So we said, we don't really go for Malta. This is not about you. It's about machine translation. They heard our long explanation for 2 pages and they left us alone. So now we're 2 years into this company, which customizes and implements different machine translation models in a corporate setting.
Good. That's very exciting. Thanks for enlightening the audience with that. It's quite a journey.
You've been in machine translation for many more years. You know how it is.
Yeah, we have been. I can't deny that. But today is about you. So what's going on in the localization/translation industry with regards to AI? How are they marrying? Are they interacting? Are they combining each other? Is one benefiting from? Is one killing the other?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting. It's a love and hate relationship between the translators and machine translation. In the very beginning, there was a lot of fear, right? That machine translation, the robots will replace humans. And everyone was wondering about it. Is the business going to be there? Will our livelihoods be affected and so on. In the beginning, machine translation was not very accurate, so very few people were using it. I don't know, maybe 5-10% of the volume was coming through machine translation. Yeah. But as the quality improved dramatically over the last 5 years, translators realized that actually, hey, if I don't do all the job from scratch, I ask the robot to pre-translate it and then I edit it, then I can do 3 times the work per day, and I can get paid more. I can do more with my time. So at the moment, it's late adoption. More than a half of translators, I think, maybe 70 or 80% now, they utilize MT to run the first pass, and then they edit it, so they're much more productive, and they even work on improving the quality. So there's less and less work for themselves to do, but they still communicate that idea that a good translation must be reviewed before it goes to publication, because otherwise something might happen. Today there is a news story that a man in, I think, China or Korea got in a fist fight with another one over how his wife's occupation was translated by a translation app, and there was blood. And so every time such a story comes out about risk, of course, they start sharing it on social networks over and over again. But the hard truth is that per one day, the machine translation engines of the world do more volume these days than all of the human bio translators on Earth could do in maybe 20 years combined. Maybe even more, right? The volume is 99.999 machine, and then there's 1% of human translators in the loop. However, in terms of money, it's the human translators still that earn all the money, and the machines are maybe 2% of the market in terms of cold hard cash.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting, that parallel. So most of the output is done by machines. The majority of translations, you say, are done by machines, but the largest share of revenue goes to human pockets, not technology.
Yes, indeed.
Empty companies. That's very interesting.
This is because we are risk averse, right? Would you like your drug description to be machine translated without any human review?
Yeah.
Would you like your contract with your biggest buyer to be machine translated without any human review? Probably not, right? You
probably not.
Want,
yeah. I need a lot of trials. Yeah. Incidentally, I was in San Francisco last week, and I can see a lot of self-driving cars. Well, the tests and cars with and without drivers. So it is coming, but we don't know when. Which leads me to the following question. Can we trust machine translation? Can we trust AI in general as a technology?
Is it a question like, can we, or how scary it is to trust machine translation, right? The short answer is you can trust machine translation to a certain point, but generally no one trusts MT to do stuff at scale in risk scenarios. But if you separate the risk scenarios, such as, I don't know, drugs, health, contracts, legal, money, finance, something really, really important, or maybe when you really need to communicate an emphatic message and completely rewrite, right? Make advertising about something different from what it was in the original. Which if you separate those cases and you look at what's growing, such as e-commerce, right? You take a gigantic catalog of Amazon. It's millions upon millions of items, and you search in Spanish, let's say, for a car, and it comes up from a seller in Hungary, and your search query is translated, the listing is translated. It's incredible volume. You can't do that without machine translation. So in this scenario, of course, you have to trust machine translation because you have no other choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
of
And
course.
everyone's trying to fight this these days. They are making different scores or forecasting predictive models to see if machine translation output can be trusted. And they're not doing it only on a human level, they're doing it on algorithmical level. But so far, they've tried a lot and they couldn't do it yet. It's an unsolved engineering problem. On the other hand, governments are now actively adopting machine translation. In Canada, there's Ministry for Translation called the Translation the Bureau of Canada. And they made machine translation for an indigenous language, for Inuktitut, for inclusion, for protecting the language, right? So on this side, they're building bodies of experts which are looking into how machine translation is used, what kind of data is used, governance, how it is done, and how it is affecting society, right? And so people are looking on the societal level, how they can build this trust for machine translation, how they can manage the risk, and how they can put the force of AI for good and not for evil.
Yeah. I think you've touched upon two interesting points there. I think the gold standard in the past was that if the MT output was going to need human eye, you needed always a proofreader. But e-commerce is the proof that you don't need a proofreader.
No.
So that gold standard has to change, and also MT serving as a technology that can preserve endangered languages. Very interesting point there. Okay, which is connected to the next question. So, can machine translation, can MT produce content with the same quality as human translator? Do you think we are there? For example, when it comes to idiomatic expressions, subtitles in films, literature is always a standard example. Are we there? Are we close to being there?
I can tell you this story. So what my company does, we train a number of candidate models when we want to adapt, or put a machine translation into the user scenario. We have 5-7 different candidates. And we give those candidates for an evaluation to professional human translators that have been working with that organization for a long time, maybe for 10 years, 5 years, 20 years, depends. So our usual practice is we don't tell them which model is there. And amongst the machine translation models, we hide one human output of their own work disguised as machine translation. We don't tell them, but we put it there. And they say model 1, model 2, model 3, and one of these M's is a human translation. And then we present them the results, how many times they scored the output of human translation, how many times they scored the output of machine translation as good to go. It doesn't need any change. It's already good. And tell you what, in about 1/3 of the cases, when they don't know, and it's a language such as Spanish, which is perfect for machine translation, or Portuguese or French, these are the languages which are easier to machine translate. Very often, by the number of sentences which are good to go, machine translation wins. Right? When I started in language and localization, every time you would have a meme on the internet about translation, that would be about someone's poor translation. You had students doing this awful job, right? Machine translation is already much better than someone who doesn't know the language, who didn't study it well, right? But it loses to a professional. But in some cases, it doesn't. In some cases, by some metrics, it already can win against a human. Not always, thankfully. There's space to go. It's good to be in a place where humans are the ultimate judge, but it does win.
Interesting. So you are applying the Alan Turing test, hiding human.
I don't know if Mr. Turing would be happy to see his test applied in this way, but definitely the managers of the program, they are fascinated by those results, And especially the first time when they see the first model, and here is the surprise: we hid your translation amongst the machine translation outputs, and here's how you scored it, and you did it yourself. And even if they had this skepticism or bias, or they wanted to say machine translation still needs work, when they see that it is their own translation and they don't have any arguments against it, they have to say, all right.
Yeah. Well, good. Very interesting, Konstantin. Okay, let's deal with. Let's go to the next question. I have a survey here from the European language industry, 2022 this year. And it says that 65% of language companies, or language industry companies, consider that there is a way of improving the quality of neural machine translation. There are ways that it could be better applied to their settings. I guess this has to do with terminology or their own style. So what opportunities does neural machine translation offer to companies or public administrations that want to customize MT?
Right. So the situation with translation companies is that they've been translating for many years, right? You founded your company somewhere in the 90s, you found your customers, and then you specialized in a niche, let's say legal and financial or biotechnology. You found people who have been working with you for many years. And all through these years, they've been saving those translations in a database. It's called translation memory. So the translation companies are custodians of the customer's data. And this data is highly scientific, specialized, of high quality, because the customers are demanding. So they ask for quality checks, reviews. So it's good stuff. And as companies sit on top of this data, they're wondering, okay, what can I do with it? And now that it is possible to customize, or it's called domain adapt a model, because you only add, 10 years of human translations. It's a drop in the ocean in the total data that is used to train an AI model. But it's an important drop. It changes the flavor. It's like you had water, you add a little bit of coloring, you add some sugar, and you end up with Coca-Cola. And so many people drink Coca-Cola, or you add a little bit of coffee, and you end up with a completely different drink, right? So in this way, the companies are there, they have the data, and what they need is the ability to put it to practice, and the permission to put it into practice, because in some cases they own the data, in some cases it's the customers that own the data. But in countries like Germany, it's the translators who have authored the translation, who are the ultimate keepers of the intellectual property. So if you can use this permission and this data to customize, then the quality of machine translation improves, and it becomes your own model that is built on your labor, on your intellectual labor over the years. So of course, for them, it's a great opportunity to differentiate. You can drink water in any country, but Coca-Cola and the local colas, there's so many different varieties of Coca-Cola in different countries. Here in the Czech Republic, there's the local cola. In Slovakia, there's the local cola, and I'm sure there's a local cola in Spain. And if you are the owner of this brand and of this quality, it creates a niche for you in the ecosystem.
Very good, very good. You've mentioned TMs that are the work of translation companies and translators. And of course, if you've amassed a lot of translation memories, you have material, you have parallel data to customize your engine. But what happens when there is very little material? What happens to low resource languages that by definition, like Quechua or Afrikaans, for example, in South Africa, Yupik in Siberia, they don't have.
Heard of Yupik.
Well, it is on the list of endangered species, endangered languages. It is a very low resource language. So what happens in these cases? I mean, the speakers of these languages don't come from millions and millions and millions of translation memories. What choices do they have?
Oh, this is a great question, and this is a difficult one. It's an ongoing discussion because the few speakers, the economic opportunity of making a machine translation engine for an endangered language, it's not that great. So why would you spend $1 million on something which is not going to give you returns, right? And at the moment, Google covers 135 or something like that languages. Facebook recently released an open source model which covers 200. But how many languages out there on Earth? 6,000, right? So it's not even 10% of languages which are covered by machine translation. And so the brands are wondering, shall we invest into this and go for a language which has very few speakers and the quality would probably be bad? Or should we just stick to larger languages? Big engineering problem. They're trying to solve it by having multilingual models which understand one language. And so by having ingested just a little bit of another language, they can process another language. The quality, of course, is not there yet. I can tell you my perspective on this if you'd like.
Go on, yes, please.
So my mother-in-law, she is Breton. So she comes from west of France, Brittany. And when she was born, she only spoke Breton, right? She didn't speak French. She went to school and the school was in French. She learned French, the Parisian variety. And eventually she was exposed so much to French and so little to Breton that she forgot her childhood tongue. She doesn't speak more than a few words of Breton these days. Right? And in the world, there's maybe 200,000 Breton speakers remaining. This is not a unique case. I think in Spain, you have also about 30 varieties of Spanish, one from the Basque country. Then you have the Catalan language, which is poorly supported by machine translation. You can find a million examples around the world. And even if you look at Latin American Spanish, it's not Latin American Spanish, it's Venezuelan, Bolivian.
Oh, yeah, there's many varieties, yeah, in Chile, in Colombia, Mexico.
I see that the choice here is between preserving those languages by offering all of the world's stuff that we consume. We consume, I don't know, Disney, we consume Lego, we consume iPhones, we consume Microsoft Office programs. We're exposed to all this content at the moment in 100 languages, give or take. And can we make machine translation which will be not so cool in quality, but still already available with some problems, but in the local variety? And this is the choice that brands are facing today. Either stick to the big languages and be cautious, and then they would let these national varieties and the culture die off because everyone wants an iPhone. They don't so much go for the produce, which is super ultra local and maybe it's used by a small number of people. It doesn't become that big, right? So if an iPhone was in Breton, then the chances for Breton language to survive would be much higher. That's my perspective on this.
Yeah, I don't know the chances of MT making it in there, but I do admire the multilingual models. I think that a good way of at least getting some information on some low resource languages. But now changing the spectrum, changing the focus, why is MT important for corporations, and what should they do anything about it? Should machine translation become part of their strategy?
Yeah, so this problem whether to add Breton into your repertoire is something that brands are going to face now, right? Because they have diversity and inclusion, because they are going to get ultra local and compete for local markets on a bigger scale, to go even more niche and detail oriented with people. So this is a suite of problems which is not easy to address by some global head of marketing, right? It has to be some specialized person coming from the linguistics industry and who understands technology really well to be able to address this. So the first thing that you do in a big corporation when you have this digital transformation, you need a leader who understands how big the world is, how different markets work, and who understand language and language technology. And that person will, of course, then drive the digital transformation. And I see this happening in some brands. In some cases, the people are very ambitious, and then they are slowed down by the resistance of all the other departments. You come in, you say, we need to adopt 200 languages, and all the other departments tell you, no, we are used to working this way. Mm-hmm. And so these people have to fight their fights and overcome the resistance internally in order to implement all this awesome technology. In some cases, they are very, very cautious, and they stick to maybe professional localization, and they don't go into so much of other shiny type of technology and model work. And in this case, they become an insular team, which is covering a small area, and they're not having aspirations to change the corporation. So the most important thing in the digital transformation journey is to have someone responsible for the language and culture, who understands technology and who has the ambition. That would be my number one advice.
Very good. I think digital transformation is the key word there. Okay,
yeah, but digital transformation is about convincing a lot of people to change the way they work. It doesn't need a technician. It needs someone with strong diplomacy, right? Who has the ability to capture the imagination. It's not about digital. It's about the transformation part, about the people.
Yeah, it's changing the mindset of the people. True. Okay, so I'm going to combine the last three questions, because I think we've merged, we've touched upon a good number of subjects here. I'd like you to describe succinctly what does Custom.MT do, and you do a lot more than just machine translation and advisory. And what are Custom.MT's projects in general, if you can describe one, and what are your plans for the future?
Right. So I think I already covered a little bit of this. We work with language people and we help them implement different AI. Our forte now is machine translation, where we train different models, compare them, run the evaluations, help with the people push. Because if you show them that there's their own evaluation, they are more likely to accept it. So that's our bread and butter. We're building a lot of software to implement those ready-made models into the applications that people use, so that they don't see machine translation. It becomes invisible, a part of their day-to-day work, and they don't even need to bother about how it's working out there. So this is integrations and connectors. This is where we're at the moment. And we're looking for a next big thing, and one of the projects which is high on our radar is something that we call a climate change translator. We had the privilege to collaborate with an important climate change organization, and we got the data from them. So we already have a little bit of translations in different languages on the subject of climate change. And so we want to amass much more. And then we can make the world's most accurate machine translation engine, which will be helping promote information about climate change in different languages. Today, you have a lot of this climate change education stuff coming out. It's awesome quality, but it's very limited in the scope. It's mostly based in the US. And so if this could be transformed into 40, 50, 100 languages of the world, indexed by Google, and could be of high accuracy without the need to have a million translators there, I think we could help a lot. So this is our mission project for the future.
Well, interesting initiative. Very good project. Congratulate you.
Thank you, Manuel. It's very early days. It's again about people. We need support from different organizations that are working in this field so that they funnel their translations to us and we can build the world's biggest silo. We already have, let's say, half of it filled, but it will take a full tank to send the rocket into space.
Okay, well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Konstantin, as always. You're such
Thank you. An absolute pleasure being here on your podcast.
Yeah. We'll edit and it'll soon be out. It's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast. You know, our microphone and our cameras will always be open for you in case you need to reach the audience. And to the audience, I would like to say that you can always follow our podcast on pangiani.com, our website, and through social media, where you will have information on the next podcast and the subjects that we're going to deal with. We always appreciate your comments because we want to make Pangea AI and Languages the podcast that people interact with and listeners ask their questions. So greetings and thank you very much, Konstantin.
Thank you, Manuel. Gracias. Maybe next time it's a synthetic voice which is going to interpret us in other languages. Who knows?
Yeah, that would be very interesting.
Thank you. Ciao.
Bye-bye.